Why is life so unfair? Asked Gloria's friend Megan, sitting next to her. Some people get everything while others get nothing. I don't know, the girl shrugged indifferently, reading a medical reference book. Come on, Gloria, don't be offended. I'm not envious. I'm just reasoning, her friend pushed her. I'm not offended, Gloria smiled and thought about it. She used to live in a small town, and she dreamed of breaking out of it with such passion that she gave up all the joys of life that her friends had in their lives. Parties, dates, back row kisses at the cinema, first love and first disappointment. But Gloria had deliberately given it all up. She decided to apply to the medical university. Gloria's mother raised her alone. Her father left them right after Gloria was born. She endured constant mockery because of her decision to devote herself to education. But Gloria got everything she wanted. She got into medical university without difficulty, and studying was easy for her. In her 4th year, Gloria met Charlie, a good, wealthy guy, a senior manager in a prestigious foreign company, and married him. Although she wasn't afraid of domestic difficulties, she was pleasantly surprised when she moved into Charlie's spacious, modern house. When they were dating, Charlie said the house belonged to his wealthy parents. When they got married, Gloria could enjoy a comfortable and carefree life. They had everything from a spoon to a beautiful house and fancy car. It was incredible luck, and the girl realized she got her lucky ticket. The young couple was happy. They loved each other, and the fact that there were no household problems made a significant difference, because the only thing Gloria had to do was to make their house a home, and the young wife tried her best. After graduation, Gloria got a job in the emergency department. It was her choice, an extensive field of activity, a chance to work with experienced professionals, and a good salary. Although there was no lack of money in the family, and her husband laughed at her desire to earn more, Gloria had no intention of giving up her dream. Besides, she constantly financially supported her mother, who lived in her hometown. As the years went by, all seemed well, except for one thing. Gloria couldn't get pregnant. As a doctor, she knew she needed to be examined, and her husband too. First, Charlie refused, but then had a checkup at an expensive private clinic. According to the checkup results, her husband was perfectly healthy, but still, she couldn't get pregnant. And then a gynecologist advised Gloria to separate from her husband for at least a couple of weeks. There were cases where the spouses took a rest from each other, and then everything worked out. Gloria thought for a long time about whether she should tell her husband about it or not. But she really wanted to have a baby. And also she wanted to see her mother, whom she had not seen for almost 2 years. So she decided to talk to her husband. Charlie, as she expected, supported her idea. However, after staying with her mother for a few days and realizing that 2 weeks away from her beloved was too long, Gloria decided to go home. Sweetheart, did you tell your husband that you're coming back early? Her mother said. Why? I want to surprise him, Gloria wondered. Well, what if he goes somewhere? The woman was anxious about something. Don't worry about it. Even if he goes somewhere, I have the keys. I'll wait for him at home. Gloria hugged her mother. But the surprise did not work. Or rather, it was not the surprise that Gloria had expected. She arrived at the airport at 5 a.m., took a cab, and by 6 a.m., she was in front of the house. She quietly put the key in the keyhole so as not to wake her husband, opened the door, and entered the apartment. The first thing Gloria noticed as she crossed the threshold was the pungent smell of someone else's perfume. Then she saw men's and women's clothes scattered across the floor. Trying to believe that her husband was away somewhere and gave the keys to one of his friends, she stepped toward the bedroom. 2 people were sleeping in their marriage bed that Gloria loved so much. Her husband and some girl. Charlie was hugging that girl in the same way he hugged his wife. There was an empty bottle of cognac and a half-full bottle of champagne on the table beside the bed. Gloria, trying not to make any noise, pulled out the top desk drawer, took all her documents and some money, and left the apartment. She felt so bad that she'd even forgotten about the suitcase in the hallway. When Charlie woke up at lunchtime, he saw the suitcase and realized what had happened. All this time, Gloria wandered around the city, visiting cafes and sitting on the waterfront, but she avoided the places she and her husband used to walk together in that happy life. When Gloria realized that she left her suitcase at home, she turned off her phone and spent the day all alone. It was surprising that she didn't even cry. Although she didn't feel the pain her friends told her about after their husbands cheated on them, she felt nothing but the emptiness that filled her heart. And this was not only frightening, but also surprising. In the evening, it began to rain. The woman counted her money and realized that she didn't have enough money to live at the hotel until her next paycheck. She called her friend. It seemed as if Megan had been waiting for her call. An hour later, she was already pouring hot tea for her friend, who began to come to her senses. By morning, Gloria had a fever, but she calmed Megan down by saying it was due to stress. So Megan left for work, and the next day, Charlie knocked on Megan's door. By simple deduction, he figured out that his wife had nowhere else to go and tried to bring her home. He was very nervous and said something about how much he loved her, that he felt bad and lonely, that he didn't understand how it had happened, that he would never do it again. Gloria didn't say a word, and after listening to her husband, she silently pointed him toward the exit. And then she stood at the window and watched the car drive away, taking away all her past happy life, which would never come back. There would be cold, sleepless nights, longing for her husband's hot lips and hands, and emptiness. I'm already thirsty. I'm already old, and nobody needs me. And God hasn't even given me a baby, Gloria thought to herself, and cried. At that moment, she truly believed that life was over. A few days later, she returned to work and was surprised to discover that life was beautiful and that she just needed to put the past out of her mind. She enjoyed walking to work, admiring the beautiful old buildings of the city that she had not noticed before. At first, she devoted herself to her studies and didn't have time to walk around the city. And then she got married and immersed herself in the household chores. They divorced quickly. They had no children or property claims against each other. Though Charlie offered her a large sum of money, she refused. And now she was rediscovering her city and herself. Gloria liked to walk along the waterfront and spend her time not in an expensive restaurant, but in a small, cozy cafe. She loved to put her hands under the tinkling jets of the fountain in the park. Also, she loved to feed the pigeons accustomed by park visitors to come to a small spot hidden in the bushes. That's where she met Kevin. After breaking another piece of bread, Gloria sat on a bench and began filming the bird banquet on her phone. Suddenly, a boy, about 5 years old, appeared in the frame, chased the birds away, grabbed a piece of bread, and disappeared into the bushes. It all happened so fast that Gloria didn't even have time to react in any way. She watched the video over and over again and felt a previously unknown feeling fill her. She went to the cafe and showed the video to the waitress. "Oh, that's Kevin. He also has a younger sister. Their father is an alcoholic, so they come here sometimes and we feed them," one of the waitresses said and wondered. But why did he grab that piece of bread? Gloria already knew why. so she would notice him. The next day was her day off, and she had been at the cafe since early morning. By lunchtime, Kevin and a little girl no older than 5, his sister, showed up. Kevin held her hand tightly with one hand, and in the other hand, he had an old bag with a jar in it. The waitress seated the kids at the table and went to bring them food. Gloria headed toward the children. "Can I have a seat next to you?" she asked the kids permission. "Sit down," Kevin said and pointed her to a chair. The waitress brought 2 bowls of soup. "Are you hungry too?" the boy asked and pushed his bowl over to the woman. "No, thank you," she smiled. "Enjoy your meal." And the children began to eat greedily, and then Gloria ordered them desserts. And while they were eating, she learned that the girl's name was Rose. Their mother died, and their father was always drunk, but he never hurt them, and they used to bring him food. They also have a little brother, but he's still a baby, lying in his crib and constantly crying. After waiting for the children to eat, Gloria asked to visit them. Why? She didn't know yet. She only knew that's what she had to do. And the children were happy to have met this kind woman. The old house where the children lived was one of the few that still hadn't been demolished. There were a lot of high-rise buildings around it. There were almost no neighbors. That's probably why no one paid any attention to the neglected children. "Daddy, there's a woman here to visit us," shouted Kevin loudly as he entered the yard. And a minute later, a drunken, unshaven man in old sweatpants and a dirty t-shirt looked out from behind the creaking door. "Why are you screaming so loudly?" he asked, and stared at his visitor with a cloudy gaze. "Who are you?" "I just came to see how the kids live," Gloria answered quietly. "What do you want to see?" The man grinned. "They live very well. I don't hurt them." But then, probably because he had no one else to talk to, he told everything about his life. He said that his wife had been very ill after childbirth, but had never recovered, and soon after she died. And he was left alone with 3 children. But he doesn't mind, because he gets a good allowance for them. But the youngest one is annoying. He's been crying for 2 days. Probably he will send him to an orphanage soon. Gloria said she was a doctor and asked to examine the baby. The first thing that she noticed was terrible dirt in the house and the smell of dirty diapers. The woman walked over to the crib where the half-year-old baby was lying, who no longer had the strength to cry, so he was barely wheezing. Gloria realized that the baby needed immediate medical help. Gloria immediately called an ambulance. When the ambulance took the baby to the hospital, Gloria called Megan. She was still living in Megan's house, so she asked if she could bring the children. Without a moment's hesitation, Megan said yes. The next morning, Gloria called her friend, who worked as the manager of the child welfare department, and asked what she could do to adopt the children. "Gloria, are you out of your mind? Why would you do that?" shouted Megan, rushing around the apartment. "I have to," Gloria replied quietly, and she knew she was doing the right thing. "But they won't let you adopt them. You're single. You have no husband." Megan tried to find at least some reason. "I'll get custody first, and then we'll sort it out," the woman smiled. A good doctor always has many acquaintances who are ready to help immediately. Gloria got custody relatively quickly, applied for daycare for the older children, picked up Neil from the hospital who had recovered, and rented an apartment. But she couldn't leave her job, and Neil was too young for the daycare. Megan's mother helped out. She was happy to take care of the baby when Gloria was at work or when she was busy. Gloria couldn't believe everything worked out for her, and she became a wonderful mother to many children. Life with children made her happy, displacing all thoughts about her husband and about men in general. Now she had no time to think about men. Gloria remembered that to adopt her children, she'd have to be officially married, but she hoped to solve that problem somehow. One day, She decided to stop at the grocery store after work, bought everything she needed, and hurried to the exit. The last thing she remembered was stepping onto the white stripe of the crosswalk and hearing the brakes screech. Passers-by called an ambulance and had time to write down the license plate number of the car that hit Gloria. When she finally came to her senses and opened her eyes, she saw a girl in a medical uniform leaning over her. She couldn't refuse a trip to the hospital. Although she had no serious injuries, she was well aware of how important it was to get an examination to rule out the possibility of complications. But what about the children? Fortunately, everything worked out just fine. After the woman had been taken to the trauma unit and given the necessary care, the police officer came to her to talk about an accident. But she couldn't say anything to him. It all happened too fast. After saying goodbye to the police officer, Gloria walked to the window. The ward was on the first floor, and her room was the closest to the entrance, so she could see everyone coming in and out of the hospital. Suddenly, her attention was caught by a tall, still young, but gray-haired man. He stopped on the porch, looked up, glanced at the windows, and opened the door. The woman's heart was anxiously beating, and then Megan entered the room. She comforted her friend and told her to relax and not to worry about anything. Her mother would take care of the children. After explaining to Megan where to get the children's belongings, Gloria felt tired and fell asleep. She didn't know how long she had been asleep, but she woke up to a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she replied, adjusting her blanket. "Miss Parker, you have a visitor," a young nurse peeked into the room. "Well, let him come in," she replied, and for some reason, she thought of her ex-husband. The nurse came out, and the familiar figure of a gray-haired man appeared in the doorway. The woman was confused, and it seemed that the silence seemed to ring in the room. And after a long silence, the man spoke. "Hello. My name is Jonathan Henderson." He introduced himself and looked at the chair in the corner of the room. "Take a seat." Gloria nodded toward the chair and thought it was too bad she didn't apply makeup or brush her hair. Jonathan took the chair, moved it closer to the bed, and sat down, placing his large, well-groomed hands in his lap. "The thing is," the man said, "I'm the father of that fool who hit you in the crosswalk. I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry." Gloria was confused, and he continued. "The policeman said that only you can save my son Stephen from jail, and even though he's guilty, but..." The man paused. Gloria was silent too, and then the man suddenly told everything about his life. He told that his wife had died in childbirth, that he was raising his son alone, and that he didn't realize how valuable personal communication had been. Most of the time, the nanny took care of the child while Jonathan was trying to build his business. His business became very successful, but as it turned out, his son grew up, and his father never became an authority over him, although he tried very hard. Jonathan said that Stephen was not a bad guy, but that night he broke up with his girlfriend and was very upset and inattentive. "I understand that he committed a crime and fled the scene, but I will give you any money and help you in any way I can. Just..." The man finished his story, got up from his chair, and suddenly, for Gloria, got down on his knees. "What are you doing? Stand up, don't make me feel guilty," Gloria suddenly shouted. "I beg you to forgive us. My son will mend his ways. I'll send him to the army for re-education," the man said, rising from his knees. "Sure, but..." Gloria smiled and wanted to say something, but it wasn't easy for her. "What do you think?" Jonathan stepped closer. "I feel uncomfortable to say it, but you'll have to buy me a coat. It's inexpensive, but I don't have any right now. And I need something to wear to walk with my kids," Gloria said with embarrassment. "I can buy even 10 coats for you," the happy father said, and they laughed together. A week later, Jonathan and his son met her outside the hospital. The man holding a huge bouquet of roses, and Stephen holding a funny teddy bear. Then Jonathan and Gloria drove to the mall, and he tried to buy her another, more expensive coat, but she insisted on the same one that had been damaged in the accident. And then they picked up the children from daycare and took a long walk around the city. They went to children's cafes and on merry-go-rounds together. So almost a month went by. Jonathan visited Gloria every day, and soon he handed the woman a box containing the family ring. "Jonathan, I'm sorry, but I can't." Gloria pushed his hand away. "Why not? It seemed to me that we were doing fine," the man muttered. "Everything is fine, but I have 3 kids," Gloria sighed. And the man noticed the tears glistening in her eyes. "Really? Why didn't you tell me this before?" He looked frightened. Gloria looked at him perplexed, but realized he was kidding and laughed cheerfully. 3 months later, their large family was sending Stephen off to the army, wondering how to tell him that he was about to have another brother or sister. Friends, thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our future content. Thank you.